As the autumn twilight in Chicago bathed the entire city in golden hues, Emily Harrison walked through the gate of her family home. Every time she returned to this suburban house, her heart was filled with complex emotions. In her busy days as a nurse, time with family was precious. However, at the same time, there was always some underlying tension in the air. When she opened the front door, she saw her mother Margaret bustling about frantically. "Emily, welcome home." "Thank you so much for coming," Margaret said, embracing her daughter. "Your father won't help at all with the 35th wedding anniversary party preparations." In the living room, her father Robert was relaxing in front of the television. The former banker had stopped helping with household chores entirely since his retirement. Still, seeing his daughter return, he showed a gentle smile. "Emily, how's work at the hospital? You look busy." "Yes, but it's fulfilling. Nothing makes me happier than seeing patients get better," Emily replied as she headed to the kitchen to help her mother. Just then, light footsteps could be heard from the entrance. Her younger sister Jessica had returned from work. Jessica worked in real estate sales and was always energetic and full of confidence. "Everyone, I'm home." Jessica greeted cheerfully and immediately rushed to Emily's side. "Big sister, it's been so long. I'll introduce you to Michael soon." Once dinner preparations were complete, the four of them gathered around the dining table. Margaret's lovingly prepared dishes were laid out, and Robert opened a bottle of wine he had been saving for special occasions. 35 years really went by in a flash," Robert said, raising his wine glass. "Margaret, I'm truly glad I married you." "Oh my," suddenly being romantic. "But I'm happy," Margaret laughed, her cheeks blushing. Jessica began talking excitedly. "Michael might propose to me soon. The other day, he stopped in front of a jewelry store and had such a serious expression on his face." How wonderful, Emily was genuinely happy. Just seeing her sister's joyful expression made her happy too. "What's Michael like?" "He works at an IT company. He's very kind, smart, and has a promising future." "I'm sure you'll love him, sis." Robert nodded with satisfaction. "A stable profession. You've caught yourself a good man." After dinner, the family looked through wedding anniversary photos and shared old memories. Emily was spending truly relaxing time for the first time in a while. She forgot about work stress and was enveloped in the warmth of her family. "Let's go shopping tomorrow," Margaret suggested. "For the final party preparations. Dad will come with us, won't you?" "Of course. Let's all go out together as a family for the first time in a while," Robert answered. "I'll go too." Jessica raised her hand. "I want to look at new dresses." Emily said apologetically, "I have some urgent matters to take care of tomorrow morning. But I can join you in the afternoon." "That's fine, Emily. You're always thinking of the family," Margaret showed understanding. "Just having you wait at home would be helpful enough." That night, Emily fell asleep in her childhood room for the first time in a long while. The walls were decorated with photos from nursing school and thank you letters from patients. She drifted off to sleep wrapped in satisfaction, believing that tomorrow would surely be another wonderful day with her family. The next morning, after her family had left, Emily was alone in the quiet house. She spent peaceful time cleaning and preparing for the party. In the afternoon, her family returned from shopping. Emily greeted them at the entrance, relieved to see everyone looking so happy. Margaret had bought a new tablecloth, Jessica had purchased an elegant cocktail dress, and Robert had selected fine wine. "Emily, thank you. The house is so clean," Margaret expressed gratitude for her daughter's thoughtfulness. "I'm so glad you're here." While carrying in shopping bags, Jessica talked excitedly. "Michael is coming to tomorrow's party. I can finally introduce him to the family. I'm looking forward to it," Emily smiled. "I can't wait to meet him and see what he's like." Robert went to store the wine in the basement cellar. While the Harrison family wasn't as wealthy as the Montgomerys, they lived comfortably as middle class. Robert, in particular, had made sound investments since his banking days and maintained a stable lifestyle even after retirement. While preparing dinner, Margaret was doing final confirmations for tomorrow's party. The friends I invited are looking forward to it too. Some wives of Dad's former colleagues are coming, and Jessica's company supervisor is coming as well. It sounds like it'll be a lovely party, Emily replied while cutting vegetables. Please let me know if there's anything else I can help with. That evening, the family gathered around the dining table again. This time, the conversation was all about the next day's party. Robert was unusually cheerful, telling stories about memories with his former colleagues. Those days were so busy every day, I think I should have treasured family time more, Robert said with distant eyes. But thanks to that, I was able to send both my daughters to college. Dad, we're truly grateful, Jessica took her father's hand. Thanks to you and Mom, we are who we are today. As the night grew late, each family member returned to their rooms. Emily was thoroughly enjoying this time at her family home after so long. She fell into deep sleep with her heart full of anticipation for tomorrow's wonderful party. The next morning, Sunday morning silence enveloped the entire house. Emily got up early and began the final party preparations. She rearranged flowers, checked table settings, and helped with food preparation. Good work, Emily, Margaret was impressed seeing her daughter's diligence. You're really so reliable. I guess it's from being trained as a nurse. Taking care of patients naturally makes you notice small details, Emily replied. Besides, helping family is only natural. Around 10 in the morning, Robert and Jessica decided to go out for last-minute shopping. Margaret decided to go with them too. Emily, could I ask you to watch the house alone again? Margaret said apologetically. We realized we don't have enough alcohol for the party. Of course. Take your time, Emily readily agreed. I'll finish up the final touches here. After her family left, Emily continued with the remaining preparations alone. She played music and worked in a cheerful mood. Occasionally, her heart leaped with anticipation for tomorrow. She was especially looking forward to meeting this person named Michael. Watching Jessica talk so happily made her think about romance herself sometimes. Just after noon, her family returned. However, what she heard from the entrance wasn't happy conversation, but Robert's angry shouting. What? The lock is open? Emily hurried to the entrance. Robert's face had turned pale, and he was clutching a small key in his hand. Dad, what's wrong? Emily asked worriedly. The study safe, Robert said in a trembling voice. The lock is open. I definitely locked it securely. Margaret and Jessica also wore anxious expressions. The family headed to the study. There was indeed a safe in an open state. Robert began carefully checking the contents of the safe. Important documents, jewelry, and cash. He checked each item carefully. Then suddenly, Robert's face froze. $50,000 is missing, Robert's voice was shaking. I definitely kept $50,000 in cash here, but it's gone. Margaret gasped. That can't be, surely not. There's no mistake, Robert checked inside the safe once more. When I checked yesterday morning, it was definitely there. I kept it here as emergency cash. Silence dominated the study. Emily was desperately trying to understand the situation. $50,000, such a large sum disappearing, what on earth had happened? Then, Margaret slowly stared at Emily. In that gaze was a coldness she had never seen before. Emily, Margaret's voice was low and controlled. You were the only one in this house yesterday afternoon and this morning, weren't you? It took Emily several seconds to understand the meaning of her mother's words. Surely you don't suspect me? We went out shopping. You were the only one in the house, Margaret's tone became increasingly stern. Who else could it have been? That's... Emily was bewildered. That I would steal money, that's impossible, isn't it? However, Jessica was also looking at Emily with an anxious expression. Big sister, didn't you say recently that you were worried about money? That just your hospital salary wasn't enough? Emily was stunned. Indeed, during a family phone call last month, she had complained about a nurse's salary. However, that didn't mean she was in financial distress at all. It was just the level of wishing she had a little more breathing room. That was just complaining. I can live comfortably enough, and I would never even think of stealing family money, Emily desperately explained. Just because I'm concerned about money doesn't mean I'd become a thief. What kind of person do you think I am? Robert looked at his daughter with a serious expression. Emily, I want to believe you. However, the fact is that $50,000 has disappeared. And you were the only one in the house. But to suspect me without any evidence, Emily's voice was trembling. I'm family. Why won't you believe me? Margaret shook her head. Emily, if you really didn't do it, then where did the money go? The lock was definitely secured. Only family members know this house's safe combination. I don't know. Emily's voice became tearful. I really don't know. The atmosphere in the room became heavy. The family's gazes were focused on Emily. Until yesterday, they should have been connected by warm family bonds, but now they were looking at her with suspicious eyes. Big sister, Jessica said sadly. Could you tell us honestly? Is there perhaps some situation? Like debt, or someone threatening you? No. Emily shouted. I haven't done anything. Why won't my family believe me? However, the circumstantial evidence was against her. She was the only one who could have approached the safe. And she had previously expressed financial concerns. The family's suspicious looks became increasingly harsh. Emily felt desperate. She never dreamed that her beloved family would treat her like a thief. And she didn't yet know that this situation would get even worse. It was Robert's cold voice that broke the heavy silence in the study. Emily, as the father who raised you, I'm giving you one last chance. If you tell the truth now, I won't make this a police matter. Emily was aghast at her father's words. Police? Dad, surely you're not seriously suspecting me? $50,000, a large sum, has disappeared. Robert stood up, placing his hands on the desk. This is a serious theft case. It can't be dismissed with emotional arguments. Margaret looked at her daughter with tears in her eyes. Emily, please tell us the truth. If you're having some trouble, let's solve it as a family. But please stop lying. I'm not lying. Emily's voice was shaking. Why won't my family believe me? Are you saying I'm a thief? Jessica looked at her sister with a complicated expression. Big sister, but the fact is, from yesterday afternoon until this morning, you were the only one in the house, right? Dad says he definitely locked the safe, and only family members know the combination. Is there any other way to explain this? Emily thought desperately. Indeed, the circumstantial evidence was unfavorable. However, she absolutely had not touched the safe. That much was certain. Maybe a burglar got in, Emily suggested in a trembling voice. The combination could have been observed, or the key could have been duplicated. Then why didn't they touch the other valuables? Robert calmly countered. The jewelry and documents were left untouched. To target only cash would be impossible unless it was an inside job. Margaret took a deep breath. Emily, let us check your bank account. If you really haven't done anything, there shouldn't be a problem, right? Emily was speechless. You're going to doubt even my privacy? As family, can't you just believe me? Then Robert quietly stood up. I've decided. I'm calling the police. Dad, please stop. Emily desperately tried to stop him. Please, think about this once more. I really haven't done anything. However, Robert had already picked up his cell phone. Chicago police? I'd like to report a theft. Emily collapsed into a chair. Could this be reality? The family that had loved each other until yesterday was now treating her like a criminal. As a nurse who saves patients' lives, to be treated like a thief by her own family. After ending the call, Robert looked down at Emily with cold eyes. The police will be here soon. You'd better make up your mind by then, Emily. $50,000 disappeared from the safe. Margaret's voice suddenly became loud. Loud enough for the neighbors to hear. She exploded with anger. Right before our 35th wedding anniversary, something like this happens. Robert pointed at Emily while saying, "You brought a thief into our home. I never thought I'd be betrayed by my own flesh and blood daughter." Jessica also added in a cold voice, "You were the only one in the house yesterday, right? Who else could it have been?" Emily stood up and desperately shouted, "It wasn't me. I didn't do it. Why won't my family believe me? I'm a nurse who helps patients every day. I'm not the kind of person who would hurt others." "Profession and character are separate matters," Robert said cruelly. "The fact is that $50,000 has disappeared. And you were the only one with opportunity." Margaret said while crying, "Emily, I knew you were having money troubles. But I never imagined you'd steal from your own family." "I'm not having money troubles." Emily raised her voice. "Sure, a nurse's salary isn't much, but I can live comfortably enough, and I even have savings." However, her family's expressions didn't change. They continued to look at her with suspicious eyes. Emily felt hopeless. "Big sister, if you really didn't do it, then prove it," Jessica said coldly. "Explain in detail what you were doing yesterday afternoon and this morning." Emily traced her memory. "Yesterday afternoon I cleaned, prepared for the party, and helped with food preparation while listening to music. This morning was the same. I rearranged flowers and checked table settings." "That's all?" Robert asked suspiciously. "You didn't do anything else?" "What else?" Emily was confused. "I was just preparing for the party for my family." "Didn't you go into the study where the safe is?" Margaret interrogated. "I went in, but to clean. I didn't touch the safe." Just then, the front doorbell rang. The police had arrived. Emily's heart pounded violently. Now she would really be treated as a criminal. Robert went to the entrance and led 2 police officers to the study. There was an older police officer and a young female officer. "You're Mr. Harrison. We're here about the report you made." The older officer took out his notebook. "First, please tell us the details of what was stolen." Robert explained in a calm voice, $50,000 in cash was stolen from the safe in my study. It was definitely there yesterday morning, but when I checked today, it was gone. Who knows the safe's combination? "Only our family of 4, Robert answered while looking at Emily. "My wife and 2 daughters. The young female officer turned her gaze to Emily. "You're Emily Harrison, right? We understand you were in this house from yesterday through this morning." Emily answered in a trembling voice, "Yes, but I didn't do anything." "I see," the officer calmly took notes. "Please tell us the detailed circumstances." Margaret interrupted. "She was the only one in the house. We went out shopping. She was the only one with opportunity." "Mom, please stop," Emily pleaded tearfully. "I really didn't do anything." The older officer looked around at all the family members. "Everyone, please calm down first. We're here to verify the facts." Then the officer said something unexpected. "Actually, we've already received 1 report about this matter. We'd like to speak with you 3. The officer's gaze was directed at Robert, Margaret, and Jessica. Not Emily, but the other 3. Emily was confused. What on earth was happening? She couldn't understand the meaning of the officer's words. "A report?" Robert was also puzzled. "What kind of report?" The older officer answered with a stern expression. "A report from Michael Chen. He testified that you 3 conspired to frame Emily." Shocking silence filled the study. Jessica's face turned pale. "That can't be, surely not," Margaret whispered in a trembling voice. "He also brought evidence," the young female officer added. "Audio recordings." The older officer took out a small recorder and placed it on the table. The air in the study was tense. Emily remained confused, looking around at her family's faces. Robert, Margaret, and Jessica's expressions showed clear agitation. Michael Chen contacted us last night, the officer explained calmly. He couldn't bear his guilty conscience and came forward wanting to tell the truth. Jessica's face became white as wax. Michael? What is he saying? He recorded your conversation among the three of you. The young female officer reached for the recorder. A conversation about your plan to frame Emily as a criminal. Emily gasped. Plan? What plan? The officer pressed the play button on the recorder. In the silence, what came from the speaker were unmistakably her family's voices. First came Robert's voice. The problem is how to pin the blame on Emily. Without evidence, it won't be convincing. Then Margaret's voice. But if we target the time when she's in the house, the circumstantial evidence should be sufficient, right? Only family members know the combination. And Jessica's voice. Remember when Big Sister mentioned having financial troubles? We can use that. Emily stared at her family in shock. The recording continued. Robert's voice was heard again. Let's say $50,000 went missing. Actually, I gambled it away at the horse track, but I can't tell anyone that. Margaret's voice. If Emily becomes a criminal, she'll probably be excluded from grandmother's inheritance too. That's right, Jessica's voice was excited. According to grandmother's will, Big Sister Emily is supposed to inherit $5 million. But if she has a criminal record, there's a high chance she'll lose inheritance rights. From the conversation coming from the recorder, Emily felt like she was losing touch with reality. Grandmother's inheritance? $5 million? She had never heard anything about this. The recording continued. Margaret's voice could be heard. We're drowning in debt. Your father's gambling addiction has pushed us to the limit. Robert's voice sounded anguished. Getting into horse racing was a mistake. But there's no going back now. With Emily's inheritance, everything would be solved. Jessica's voice rang out coldly. Big Sister was so busy as a nurse that she hardly took care of grandmother when she was sick. But grandmother wrote in her will that only Emily took care of me during my illness. Isn't that unfair? Emily's memory came back. Indeed, during the few months before grandmother died, she had gone to the hospital between work shifts to care for her. The other family members rarely came to visit. However, she had no idea that grandmother had left her an inheritance. Michael's voice came from the recorder. But isn't this a crime? To frame an innocent person? Jessica's voice sounded pleading. Michael, please. If this succeeds, we can get married. We won't have to worry about money anymore, and we can start a new life. But, Michael's voice was hesitant. If you don't cooperate with me, our relationship is over, Jessica's voice was threatening. If we succeed in framing Big Sister Emily, I'll marry you. How about it? The recording ended quietly. Heavy silence filled the study. Emily looked at her family while trembling. It was an unbelievable scene. The family she had loved had planned so systematically to frame her. The older officer spoke. Michael Chen initially intended to comply with Jessica's demands. However, unable to bear his guilty conscience, he recorded the conversation and submitted it to us as evidence. Jessica covered her face and began crying. No, this is. He told us last night, the young female officer continued. True love cannot be built on lies. Emily is innocent. I must tell the truth. Robert collapsed into his chair. I'm sorry, Emily. Dad, Emily's voice was trembling. Why? Why me? Margaret also said through tears, the debt was unbearable. Your father's gambling put us on the verge of losing our home. Even so, Emily stood up. Even so, you tried to make me a criminal? Your own daughter? The officer interrupted. Robert Harrison, you are under arrest on charges of attempted fraud. Margaret Harrison and Jessica Harrison, you are as well. Wait, Emily stopped the officer. Arresting my family. Emily, the older officer said gently. You are the victim. What they tried to do to you is a serious crime. They tried to destroy your life. Emily looked at her family through tears. Robert couldn't lift his face. Margaret continued crying. Only Jessica still seemed to be looking for some excuse. Please tell me about grandmother's will, Emily asked the officer. $5 million was left to you, the officer answered. Your grandmother, Eleanor Harrison, wrote in her will, only Emily cared for me until my final days. The other family members said they were too busy to come. Emily remembered her grandmother's kind face. Just before she died, grandmother had held her hand and said, "You're such a kind child, Emily. I'm proud of you." The meaning of those words finally became clear now. The officers were about to proceed with the formalities, but Emily had mixed feelings. Along with anger toward her family, she also felt deep sadness. The reality of being betrayed by blood relatives was more painful than she could have imagined. However, at the same time, she felt gratitude toward Michael, a man who had followed his conscience and revealed the truth. Without him, she might really have been treated as a criminal and had her life destroyed. Before leaving the study, Emily turned back to look at her family. Tomorrow was supposed to be the wedding anniversary party. But now those plans, and the family bonds, had all crumbled. After the questioning at the police station ended, Emily sat alone in a coffee shop. She still couldn't accept the reality. The family she had loved just hours ago had been trying to frame her. Emily? She turned around to find Michael Chen standing there with an anxious expression. This 30-year-old man appeared to be an ordinary person working at an IT company. However, his conscience had saved Emily's life. Michael, Emily stood up. You were the one who. I'm sorry, Michael bowed deeply. At first, I intended to go along with Jessica's words. Because I wanted to marry her, I was going to sacrifice you. Emily gestured for him to sit in the chair across from her. But you told the truth. That's what matters. Michael began talking through tears. Jessica told me, if you frame Emily, I'll marry you. But as I listened to the recording over and over, I realized, true love cannot be built on lies. So you went to the police? Yes. I had never met you, but Jessica always talked about how Big Sister works devotedly for her patients. I couldn't frame someone like that. Emily smiled quietly. Thank you, Michael. Thanks to you, the truth came to light. 3 months later, the court's verdict was handed down. Robert, Margaret, and Jessica were all charged with attempted fraud and received suspended sentences. However, the social sanctions were harsh. Margaret became the subject of neighborhood gossip and, from embarrassment, became a shut-in. She lost friendships built over many years and began living lonely days. Robert used most of his retirement money on legal fees and was pursued by remaining debt payments. He finally had to join a gambling addiction treatment program. Days of abandoning his pride and facing his mistakes had begun. Jessica was fired from the real estate company and completely broke up with Michael. She decided to leave her hometown, find a new job in a small town on the West Coast, and start over from scratch. Meanwhile, Emily inherited the $5 million bequest from her grandmother. Every time she reread the will, she felt the depth of her grandmother's love. Emily came to visit me every day when I was suffering from illness, despite being tired from work. The other family members said they were too busy to come. I entrust my assets to Emily, who has true kindness. Emily used the inheritance to establish a medical facility for underprivileged children called the Eleanor Care Center. At this facility named after her grandmother, she used her experience as a nurse to save many children's lives. On the day of the opening ceremony, Emily stood in front of the facility. Many medical professionals and community members had gathered. Michael was among them. Emily, it's a wonderful facility, Michael said with emotion. Your grandmother must be very pleased. Thank you, Emily looked up at the sky. Grandmother taught me something. True family isn't about blood relations. It's bonds connected by trust and love. The doctors and nurses working at the facility, and the children receiving treatment and their families, Emily had found a new family. Even without blood connections, surrounded by people who cared for and supported each other, she felt true happiness. As the sunset painted the facility's windows golden, Emily smiled. The pain of the past wouldn't disappear, but there was definitely hope for the future. A new life based on true love and trust would begin from here.